wanting to speak but not wanting to speak.
Yeah, to me it feels like, in a way, that the script was written, and that according to the energies that we have in our body, law of attraction just, like magnetically pushes us into these different roles as we choose to accept them or refuse them. And that it's not that it's destiny so much, but that it's like, it's like every time when you plan to do an artwork, you have some idea before you go and do it, but at least for me, it's always different than I expected it. And that's one thing that I've also realized about the universe. Every time you expect anything, the universe is always going to give you something outside of your expectation. Now, I felt that recently, if you're set on a whole ground of good manifestation and you're focusing of pure positive thought, if you're only looking in a positive direction, well, everything that's going to be beyond your expectation is going to be just more wonderful than you could possibly imagine.
It's true. We have experienced it already.
But on the negative side of that, which I had this epiphany for, which I was sitting there, and I'm sitting here trying to plan out for all these contingencies that are going to happen, good and bad. And so what happens every time is I basically eliminate all of the possibility for having an easy experience because I'm trying to expect everything. And so basically the universe is not Hollywood. You don't have some easy ending and you know the ending because it's never ended.
Yeah, but you have choice and you can choose right in the moment to feel good.
Yeah.
And just choosing to feel good you have, and then the infinite possibilities that are available, the one that shows up is the one that's going to please you. And you're going to enjoy it and then have your lessons from a place of choice rather than necessity. Because you're in your head. You get it in your head. Now you want the experience of it in your feeling body, because that juice of the feeling body brings more. But you see, if we got it as quick as we could get it, and as quick as we're ultimately going to be getting, the changes would happen too quickly, and that we wouldn't be able to cope with it. So we're now building ourselves up to a place of being able to cope with those kind of changes. You couldn't have done what you're doing now 20 years ago.
Right.
You couldn't have done what 2 years ago, what
Right.
you're doing now.
Right.
But it's now, time is folding, and so we don't have the time anymore, and it's our job to pay very good attention to what we're putting out. And thought is the flash of that match lightning. That's the thought. And that's what you have the most power over. So isn't it exciting that what we have the most power over is what gives us all the power to create exactly what we want? And why would we create anything but peace? Who's going to want to create, war? For what? For the fun of it? For the money? Like, if there's no money in the system anymore, then what difference does it make? So I think that there are more and more people today willing to ask for peace and consider it. Where in the 60s, and the Beatles were singing about it, we couldn't cope with it then. It's a reality because we knew that the only way that we were going to be, because we knew how good it was after war. Because we were thinking that way, and because the bottom line in money was, because we thought money was real. When we gave money, we made money more than us. And now we're taking our power back as a society, as a whole generation, as an era. Because we're in a new millennium. Everything is there, it's right. So we have everything that we need. So if we don't act on it now in a conscious way, if we don't consciously choose to feel good and to be happy, if we don't consciously choose to feel good and be happy, then we're doing a disservice to the world. Ooh.
That's good.
That's very good. Say it again. What did I just say? Okay, that was really good, but it's true. That's
why
how
we have the camera.
Okay. Disservice to the world if you think a negative thing. It's enough already.
You don't choose to be happy.
If you don't choose to be happy, that you're doing a very serious disservice to the world. We're not allowing peace that we all say we want.
There's a lot of people that talk, and I kind of like this distinction where you have service to self entities and service to others entities. But the most important thing is that it's not this great polarization, that even the service to others entities who care more about other people than themselves even, they still have to have that love of themselves, because you're really missing it unless you realize that you are the same, and if you don't love yourself, then you can't really love other people in the same way.
And you know what's amazing about it, when you finally get to the point of loving yourself, you realize that when you thought and were taught that loving yourself was selfish, and you're self-centered and all of these horrible things, and you thought it was so bad, it's just the opposite. When you truly love yourself, when you truly accept yourself, then you become so generous, and you're much more generous of spirit, which is much more important than generosity, right? And it's easy to be compassionate and loving. And so you're a much better, grander person by loving yourself. You become more of who you are in a really big way. And
you put that energy out, and it spreads to other people of like minds.
Right, and we were taught to not be selfish.
Right.
To not consider self. We were forced to do it and thought it was bad. So all of that shame, and see, you don't have to really go through as much as we did in terms of letting go of shame.
I've gone through my own shame problems, and I'm pretty much through most of that already. Yeah. You did say you wanted to talk about relationships, and we kind of completely...
Yeah, that's what happens. Well, when you want to talk about relationships, I mean, everything is relationship.
Well, I guess I wanted I think one thing from my philosophic background is that when you have a relationship with somebody, it's always an identification with yourself, and it's when you have a relationship with somebody else, you can always ask somebody, it's like, what do you find out of this relationship with somebody? And they'll have some reason, but that reason came from themselves, not from the other person. So the relationship, and the most important thing in the relationship, is you, every time. And that's why the Native Americans, one of their biggest beliefs is take responsibility for everything. Total responsibility. And this is like, I'm not saying that everything that happened to you was your fault, but...
It's not about fault, though. You see, that word doesn't work. It's not causation. See, reality creating is not cause and effect. It's allowing. It's about allowing. So there is never any fault. It's taking authorship and ownership of your experience of who they are and what that teaches you about yourself. That's how you apply that understanding that you have here. Because it must be applied to your everyday experience of relationships in order for it to expand into growth. Not just the change, because you're making changes now that are very powerful and very quick and insightful, but at the same time, you need to get it into your emotional body so that because where a little bit of fear and doubt is for all of us now is, that we're going to lose control.
Yeah.
And that's important for us to feel safe, out of control. What do you think about that?
I think that's very correct.
All right, so we have a new motto.
So
what we have a new goal, like this place that we want to be is to be out of control. And
so I'm having something coming to me